Children, you could sing that to them as they go to sleep at night. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, many years ago, decades even, I was just a young pup at Queen's Theological College in Kingston, Ontario. And the moderator of the United Church at the time, Bill Phipps, said something outrageous and controversial. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember what it was? It was in the National Post. He met with them to talk about economics and the Bible, and they caught him also saying that he didn't believe Jesus was God. Do you remember that? Oh, Ellen does. That was a hot one. Still is a hot one. Leader of a United Church of Canada saying Jesus wasn't God. You know, the National Post. That wasn't exactly how he said it, but that's how they put it. And the man, was there a blow-up? So, the professors of Queen's Theological College thought in their wisdom, let's have a public panel. And we'll explain Jesus through history, some biblical ideas. They invited a Muslim scholar to come speak about what Muslims believe about the identity of Jesus as a prophet, and this sort of stuff. Well, needless to say, there's a couple of fundamentalists who squeezed through the door. I remember this very clearly because the Titanic movie had just come out. Near, far, you know. And this woman from the fundamentalist side of town stood up near the end of the thing and she said, I am here to tell you that just like the Titanic sunk to the bottom of the sea and is covered with slime and yucky stuff, so too is the United Church of Canada going to be broken in half by God and sink to the bottom of the ocean and be covered in slime. Whew. Needless to say, we had some loving United Church thing to say back, like, thank you, sister, or something like that, and then we offered her donuts and tea. But afterwards, outside, I saw my professor, Millard Schumacher, a great Nebraskan, and Millard was walking to his car up the driveway of Queen's Theological College, and you know me, I don't know if you can imagine, but I'm a bit cheeky, and I ran after him and said, Dr. Schumacher, help! I'm going into ministry in the United Church of Canada and we're sinking to the bottom of the sea and we're going to be covered in slime and rot. Dr. Schumacher turned on his heel and he said, well, big deal. So we learned to do ministry at the bottom of the ocean covered in slime. Wonderful wisdom for this brazen, impetuous young man. Precocious. Luckily, that doesn't happen anymore. Judah, in the book of Jeremiah at this point, the southern kingdom of Judah is being ransacked by the Babylonians. You know, Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians. They are kicking the pulp out of Jerusalem. It was a decade or more of ransacking and pillaging. And Jerusalem has yet to finally fall to the Babylonians. But the leadership, the king, and all of the key hierarchy and religious teachers of Jerusalem have been carried off into exile. I've never understood this, and I must do some more reading. I don't know why they weren't killed. But maybe there's something humane about the Babylonians, who knew? And they take them off to Babylon, where they sat down and remembered Zion. Remember? By the rivers of Babylon, right? Remember that song? Yeah, it was written while they were over there in Babylon. They weren't lying. They were actually sitting by the rivers of Babylon, the Tigris and the Euphrates, and in present-day Iraq. And they were hauled away and kept in exile. That's where the stories of Daniel and all that kind of stuff come from. Jeremiah, the prophet, is left so far back in Jerusalem. And he is called on by God to write a letter of comfort to those in exile. So he sends a letter to Babylon, and this is part of what Sharon read today. Much to our surprise, what God told Jeremiah to tell the leaders in exile is this. Love the city you are in. Send your sons out to get married to their women. Be at ease, because I have placed you there, God says, and seek the welfare of the city where you find yourselves. Seek its welfare, because in its welfare you will find yours. Love when it's hardest to love God says. Try and relax. And actually God says, because you're going to be there a while. There's nothing quick going to happen. I will deliver you, but not soon. Generations. So you know that because God starts to talk about intermarrying, right? Which I got to tell you, for the Jewish people was absolutely taboo. Jeremiah writes them, God says, seek the welfare of the city you're in. Well, look at Saskatoon. Isn't that nice? Seek the welfare of the city where I've sent you, God says. This is an important message for the church today. You know, many churches are waiting for people to come in the door. We call it the theology of attraction. If only more people could come, right? I call it the bums in the pews theology. The church would be saved if just more people would come, and yet we don't invite our friends, so I don't know how it's going to happen. Just that's a little side. That's not from Jeremiah, that's from Dave. If you don't invite your friends, our church will not get fill up these spots. Okay? Many churches just waiting for people to come in the door, and often, sneakily, we're waiting for people who look just like us. Right? Except our friends look just like us, but we don't invite. Anyway, okay, that's the last I'm going to say about that. But we're waiting for people to come in. Remember the 60s? Right? That's every church remembers the 60s. You get people who've been here 5 weeks, they remember the 60s at the church. Why? The church school was filled. We had 150 kids. We have musical shows day in and day out. We did have a lot of musical shows. Kathy Bender will tell me. We did have a lot of musical shows. There was kids just swarming this place. We had 1,000 people at Mayfair United Church. I looked at the church building. We couldn't have had 1,000, but it felt like 1,000 people at Mayfair United Church. You know, we have those memories. And we just keep imagining that somehow God is going to tell everybody who isn't here to get to church. Right? Like my friend Josie in Bella Bella, BC, who said that she wished it was illegal not to go to church. The RCMP could go around and gather up the people of Bella Bella and put them in church. That's a bad piece of church history right there, just for the record. But Josie was all about that. Remember I told you about her ringing the bell. She'd ring the bell and sing, get to church, ye sinners, you daughters and sons of Adam and Eve, get to church. Oh, preacher, if only it was illegal. And then the RCMP would make everybody go to church. Okay, that's not going to happen. No matter how hard Josie prays. People are not just going to arrive. And they're not, and those who arrive, folks, are not necessarily going to look like us. Or think like us. Or talk like us. What if we went out and served the welfare of those around us? Like Jeremiah wrote to the people in exile. You know, exile is hard for us to understand. Many of us who have grown up and lived in Canada, we've never been exiled. We've never been in a refugee camp. We've never lived far away from home. There are some of us here today who've been a little lost. But you know, there's a new type of exile that we feel in North America, and sometimes a feeling of exile can come when we wake up and we look around and nothing seems like it used to. Right? Where we wake up and gee, man, the world is moving too fast for me. And I say to my kids, do you know, there was a time where we actually would go up to a door and knock on it and not know who was on the other side of the door. Because we didn't text them first, say, come to the door. We actually had to meet parents. Things like that. There was a time where I was allowed to get out of the car and go up and meet the parents. Heck, there was a time where you only played in your own neighborhood and we all knew the parents. Why? The world doesn't look like it used to. We could get back to the good old days. That's kind of an exile for our hearts and our minds. We wake up and realize the world isn't the way we left it the day before, or 5 years before, or 20 years before. And we feel lost, and it can feel disorienting. We can feel like we don't have a firm footing on the sandy ground that keeps shifting. So this message to the exiles is a bit different than greatly different than their circumstances, but can still speak to us today because often we feel a bit of loss and a bit of disorientation, like we don't live where we used to live anymore, even though we haven't moved very far. What if, in that sense of exile and not recognizing the world, it's Christmas time, so there's going to be all these arguments about Christmas and Merry Christmas, and do we say it or not, because the world's going to pot because there's some big, Muslim war against Christmas or something in Canada. There's not. But you've got a relative who's going to say it at Christmas dinner. You know it. Or on Facebook. Denise has got friends on Facebook drive her crazy with that kind of stuff. I'm not naming who they are, Denise. But we're going to just start a Facebook page just for Denise and I and our wonderful thinking. That you know that people are going to get all riled up again as if there's some sort of attack on Christmas in the world. And that's just a reaction from some of us for the sense of exile we feel. The world, North America is not a Christian place anymore. Canada's not specifically a Christian nation anymore. It bothers some of us. It bothers Uncle Henry even more. That's how we react to exile. It's not true. There isn't a war on Christmas. We can't put Jesus back in Christmas. We didn't put Jesus in Christmas the first time. That's what a wise person said once. In our exile, imagine if we could do what God asked the people of Jeremiah's time to do. I know, we believe we built this church. In fact, we've built it 3 times. We've lost 2 to fire. And we designed this church. And I was, talking to Agnes the other day. Agnes she'll say how she gathered all the volunteers to get together, and she watched the church being built from across the corner there. Ron Fair actually walked the beams and framed this church, and he sits here almost every week when he's not in Arizona. Oh, that's where he is. He walked these, Bob Shaw used to say, he'd come over and just watch Ron Fair carrying lumber and walking the frame of this church. We really feel we built this church. We built it with our spirit and our love. Except we didn't. God put us here. God put Mayfair United Church here. Originally down on 33rd and E, Mayfair United Church, right where Mayfair Drugs is, right? Right in the parking lot there. You can stand there and you can still hear the hymns going through the spirit of the air there. Right by the goldsmith shop. You can stand there and feel the Spirit. I have on a number of occasions. And then we moved, and it took a little while. God couldn't find us for a while. And then, they moved. We built an A-frame here. And we think we did all that, but no, we didn't. God placed us here. Just like Jeremiah says. Seek out the welfare of the people around you where you've been placed. What if we remembered that? That we have been gathered by God. We've been called into being, whispered and dreamed and hoped into existence as a people at Mayfair United Church. We have been sent, called, placed, gathered in this place. Not to hide here and wait. That's what we love to do. Hide and wait. Oh, they'll find us. But to provide for the welfare of the place where we find ourselves, the place that God has placed us. I know it's coming on December, right? It's coming on Christmas. It feels exhausting. Reverend Dave wants us to do more. And God wants us to do more. Oh man, I'm tired. Right? And we're getting a little tired as a congregation. Somebody mentioned that the other day at council. We're tired. We're tired. We're not joyless. We're very happy but tired. Kind of like Boxing Day tired, We're happy, but we're exhausted. Churches all over the city are exhausted and tired. And when we think about the welfare of our city, it sounds great, but I don't know. Maybe somebody else will do it. Maybe there's some zippy church that isn't tired that'll do it. Somebody's got to do it, but I don't know if I've got time. What activity could you discover that would serve the welfare of our city? What activity could you discover or dream of that might actually bring you energy? Because when we think of serving, we often think of exhaustion. But I think that's because we've been serving in the wrong way. Often it's been we serve in ways that we don't like, or it doesn't have anything to do with our talents or our skills or our gifts. What if you plugged into something going on out there, some way to serve, that just made you feel zippy? In the next 20 years, you'd be so energized. You'd be so energized because God said, if you serve the welfare of the city you find yourself in exile, your welfare will follow. It's a promise. If you serve and love, you will be filled and renewed. If you serve and love, you will be filled and renewed. Let's say it one more time. If you serve and love, you will be filled and renewed. Thus says the Lord to those in exile. I'm just going to mention Tommy here. I got him written. I scribbled you in here, Tom. Right here, buddy. Because I'm just so impressed. I asked this family, and I hope this isn't too secret. I asked them, well, now it's going to come out, so even if it is, what are you going to do? Too late. I met with the Keeps on, like Thursday night before council, and I said, well, why baptism? Like, he's 9. You're 9? Yeah, 9. Acts like he's 14. He's 9. I said, what is it about, why baptism? And they said, it was Tommy's idea. It was Tommy's idea to come and get baptized, just like it was Zeke's idea to get baptized. It was Ananias' idea to get baptized. We got these kids who want to be here. And you listen to them, they're all about seeking the welfare of the world. They want to love. And I was just thinking about Tommy this morning. Every time I baptize somebody, especially when they're a little bit older and they know what's going on, I'm just thinking, I wonder what dreams Tommy has for the world. What way he's going to be energized by giving to the world. Kids are so awesome at doing it. You know, last week I mentioned that we were going to go into the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I thought I'd just bring you a little update. Because it ended up the church a little more than we thought. We thought we were going to shuttle people back and forth to the Friendship Center from the Sheridan. But actually ended up we had a table in the lobby and we were the first place of contact. We were the smiles at the Sheridan. People came in, you know, they just gotten off the road. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't know where to go. And they had to turn left to go way past the restaurants to get registered. But the registration people weren't in the lobby. We were. 2 or 3 lovely United Church people, 1 or 2 nice Anglicans. And we smiled. And we said, hey, what's going on? Oh, you want to register? Well, you just go on down there. Are you here for the public hearings? Just go on down there and get a lanyard. And no, the breakfast is downstairs. Or why don't you start with lunch? They put on a great lunch. And we just smiled. And we're, hospitable. And I got to tell you, the energy is a tough energy around the inquiry. It was sad. Families were there to speak for hours. The sadness of losing a niece or an aunt or a mom. It's heartbreaking. I could feel the energy and I could smell the smudge from the other rooms. And it's hard to hold. But what made it easier to hold was all this real contact with real people in real need of love. And so we just sat there seeking out the welfare of our city and our province and our nation. And we just connected with people and laughed. I got at the feast at the beginning, after the first ceremony, there was a feast. And I was sitting over here with my friend Roger, who's an Anglican. He's a nice guy. And they said, no, the protocol guy got upset. We'd like you to sit over here with the elders, please, with the eldermen, because you're going to support this elder in his prayers tonight. And so then I'm like, elders? What? Right? So I shuffle over and I sit right next to a guy who's probably only 64 himself. And when the kids are serving the food, I said, make sure you get my very elderly friend here. I'd never known him before from Adam. But we laughed and laughed. And all the rest of the week he'd saw me, he'd say, this man's my elder, he'd say about me. I bless you, my son. And we just joked and laughed and shared the human spirit and shared God's love with each other. And you know what? It was a tough week, but an energizing week. Because in seeking the welfare of the city, we found our own welfare. And here's what God says. Then I will let you find me. And then I will let you find me. You will seek me, and I will be found, God says. Our elusive God, our mysterious God, our crazy, wild, hard to control God is just waiting to be found. And says it's easy if you seek the welfare of others. Your welfare will come to you. And I will be easy to find. May it be so. Amen.